Let's make this easy, no knead, no Dutch oven bread. Aside from being delicious, this recipe is perfect for anyone who doesn't have a Dutch oven or who finds lifting heavy cast iron pots difficult. These kind of tall, crunchy loaves of bread with amazing soft crumb are usually baked in a Dutch oven. I'm going to show you the easiest way to recreate this kind of bread without one. Now, there are many ways to make crusty bread. And while you can get good results just by placing your loaf directly in the oven, the truth is many people struggle to get a tall, crunchy loaf that way. You see, there's a reason Dutch ovens are so popular. They create the perfect environment for allowing your bread to grow tall and to keep its ball-like shape. So let me show you an easy, foolproof method for creating that same ideal bread baking environment using just about anything you have laying around. I hope this will answer all your questions on how to make artisan bread without using a Dutch oven. Now let's talk flour. You want to use all-purpose flour like I did for my No Knead Italian bread. This is the same recipe, different method. This is the flour I use and I highly recommend it. It's my absolute favorite for making this type of bread. If you can't find it, just make sure it has 11% protein content. To a bowl, add the water, salt, and instant yeast. If you want to do an overnight rise in the fridge, add half the amount of yeast. Give these ingredients a mix and add the flour all in one go. Using the same fork or wooden spatula, you want to mix until a shaggy dough forms. Then using a wet hand, continue mixing to make sure everything is properly hydrated. Now, as you can see, this dough is too wet to knead. So we're going to use two different stretch and fold techniques to develop strength in the dough. If you've seen me doing stretching and folding before, keep watching because the technique changes. Cover the bowl and leave it on the counter for 30 minutes to allow the flour to continue to hydrate. While it's hydrating, let's make a sandwich. Let's face it, not all of us make all our own bread, especially when you're renovating an old apartment. That's where I've been. When Hero Bread reached out to me, I was ecstatic because I love their bread. And to be quite honest, I haven't been able to develop a bread with zero net carbs that's this good and soft. Hero Bread has no net carbs, 0 grams of sugar, lots of fiber, and it tastes like actual bread. Hero makes quite a few different styles of bread, but my favorite is the seeded sandwich loaf. Honestly, you wouldn't know this is a no net carb bread. It's delicious and soft, and it's perfect for sandwiches. Their website has lots of great, simple ideas for ways of using their bread, including this turkey club sandwich I'm making here. I've been living off this sandwich for the past months. If you're looking for a healthy store-bought bread, no compromise on texture and flavor whatsoever, I really recommend Hero Bread. Go to hero.co and use code Emma at the checkout to get 10% off your order. After 30 minutes, wet your hand with water. The water prevents the dough from sticking to your hand. Stretch out one corner of the dough, lift it up, and over to the opposite side of the dough. Do that for another 3 times, turning the bowl every time. You're then going to cover the bowl and let it rest for another 30 minutes. Then repeat this process one more time and perform another 4 stretches and folds. After the first 2 rounds of stretching and folding the dough, we need to switch techniques. If you were using a Dutch oven, you would keep going with the same method and just put the dough in the pot. But for this bread, we're using a baking tray. If the dough spreads out, we can't cover it. So we need a method that helps the dough keep some of its shape. This method is called coil folding. It's super easy. Wet your hands again and lift the dough from the middle and let it stretch naturally under its own weight, tugging the edges underneath to create tension on the top surface of the dough. The first coil fold will be messy. I know, keep going. Rotate the bowl and repeat this technique for another 4 to 5 times or until the dough is nice and taut. As you can see, you're naturally shaping the dough into a ball-shaped loaf. Cover the dough and let it rest for another 30 minutes. Then repeat the coil fold process one more time. This tension on the top surface of the dough is what will help the bread hold its ball-like shape as it rises. At this point, you'll also see some more bubbles on the surface of the dough. Now that we're ready to bake this loaf, let's talk a little about why Dutch ovens are so perfect for baking these kinds of rustic loaves. If we understand that, we can understand just what we need to get a similar result without using a Dutch oven. When you're using a Dutch oven, the first thing you do is preheat the pot to a high temperature. But why? You do that because when the raw dough hits the hot base of the pot, you get what's called oven spring, which causes the dough to rapidly heat up, causing the gas we trap to expand. But why is the lid of the Dutch oven also important? Well, it traps steam, keeping the dough surface soft and allowing it to expand fully. Without the lid, the bread would form a crust too soon, preventing a proper rise. Once the loaf has expanded, we then remove the lid to allow the loaf to brown and develop a crispy crust. Now that we've understood why Dutch ovens are so important, we can easily mimic one. The easiest thing we could do is just use another pot and a lid. However, lots of pots are not oven safe, some have plastic handles, and others just can't stand the high temperature. So how can we mimic the Dutch oven? We'll use a baking tray. Now, unlike Dutch ovens, preheating the baking tray isn't necessary for the oven spring that we mentioned before. That's because baking trays have a low thermal mass, which means they heat up instantly in the oven, unlike heavy cast iron pots. Lightly brush your tray with olive oil and dust the top with some flour. You're then going to need something that mimics the lid of the Dutch oven so you can recreate that steamy environment that we talked about. Anything oven-proof will do. A large roasting pan, a tall cake pan, an aluminum bowl. That's what my mom uses when she's making this particular bread. Mine are quite small, so I'm going to use a tall cheesecake pan. They all serve the same purpose, so feel free to use anything that's large enough, oven safe, and that will do the job. Once your oven has preheated, you're going to gently lift the dough and place it onto your baking tray. Careful to not punch down all the bubbles you've created. Using some scissors, cut a slit down the middle and cover the bread. You're going to bake this bread for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, carefully remove the lid and leave the loaf to continue to bake until it's a beautiful golden brown color. Let this take as long as it takes. Use your eyes to judge. Usually this takes 15 to 20 minutes more. You don't need a Dutch oven to make artisan bread. You're going to let this cool for at least 1 hour on a cooling rack before slicing into it. This will give time for the loaf to cool enough for the crumb structure to form. Have this with your dinner. It's perfect for sandwiches, for lunch, or even just for simple bruschetta. It's crunchy, soft. I think you and your family will really love it.